What is up, everyone? I am Charlie Shrem, and you are listening and watching Untold Stories, where twice a week together we get to dive deep with some of crypto and tech and just all brilliant people from all aspects of society to really understand where we are in the crypto movement, in the societal shift that we're going through, and to understand where we're going, to have fun along the way, maybe make a few trades, and give ourselves that sovereignty, that the ability to control our own destiny and our family's future, and the love and kind of the thread that I've been weaving over the past few weeks and all of our shows is like using this technology to bring about this like global harmony and to talk more about that. Mayor Scott Conger, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm like super excited. You're the mayor of Jackson, Tennessee for a few years now, and you're actually the third person in your family to serve as the mayor of Jackson, and you have such a long-term commitment to your community, to Bitcoin. It's so much fun following you on Twitter, and I know a lot of people do as well. And like, I want to just kind of get into it. Well, first, thank you so much for coming today.
I know. Thanks for having me.
You have the coolest office. So I can never tell, is it a real background or is it like one of like a green screen or whatever?
No, that's my office. You should talk about the two members of my family. So right there is a picture of me and my grandfather the last time he was sworn into office. That was in '87, and then back over right there is a picture of my great grandfather who was mayor in 1861 and 1871.
I have to say that when I started following you and understanding, I look at on social media who are the politicians from governors of states in India to the deputy prime minister of Kosovo to you. I love following the people that are actually the ones that are going about making the change. You were telling me on a pre-show that you were speaking to the local senator. Can you repeat that story?
Yeah, I was just I
That's so
had a
cool.
meeting scheduled with Senator Blackburn, who's actually serves with on the Financial Innovation Caucus, and had some conversation with her staff, and one of her staff from DC was supposed to come to Jackson next week, and we're supposed to have a meeting and lunch and everything. And the West Tennessee director for Senator Blackburn just emailed and said, "Hey, he's infrastructure bills going on in DC, going to the Senate, and so he's not able to come." So I said, "Understand, be sure." And I know that Senator Blackburn is doing this, but that she's supporting the Wyden, Loomis, and Toomey amendment to the infrastructure bill to protect Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And so just trying to get a plug in everywhere I can to make sure that we're protected, and when it comes to financial innovation, and it's encouraged.
Typically, um, not typically, but a lot of times, or maybe I'll make a lot of statements of fact, and you tell me if I'm wrong, because the thought is that governments, local and federal level, will put in certain aspects of unpopular law into very popular law in order to get things passed through the infrastructure bill. Everyone wants it, but why put this crazy crypto legislation in such a non-related, very popular law? And then what is actually like the actual rule that now will be changed if this does get passed without any of the amendments?
Yeah, it's I think it just makes it more difficult. And it taxes more. The thing is of right now, and I've expressed my opinion to our representation in DC that this is a currency. It's not an asset. It's not to be treated, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people share that like something that appreciates and you have to pay capital gains
Yeah.
tax on. So I mean, it really limits the utility of it at this point, in my opinion, because you don't want to pay taxes every time you spend it and transfer a Bitcoin. If you want to pay someone, you have to pay capital gains tax. And so, fortunately, I think for us, all politics is local. At the local level, I can't speak for all local
Sure.
municipalities and governments, but we don't put in anything that's unpopular. If we're going to pass something, there's an ordinance, a local law we're going to pass. We're going to put it out there, and it is what it is. But you get to that federal level, and it's all that horse trading that goes
Yeah.
on. I'll vote for it if this is in there and that's in there, and it's unfortunate that it has to be like that. And I have my own philosophical opinion on why it's
Sure.
like that, but that's for another podcast.
Well, like most people don't understand that local governance, that we all live in a city, town, village, but let's just kind of amalgamate them into all we live in these like societies that require governance at the local level. And actually, I live in a city, you're not as large as yours. And it's great because I'm friends with the mayor here. I was actually just yesterday, we were at a kid's summer camp and I was hanging out with the mayor, the deputy city manager, city commissioner, and everyone is like friendly and everyone's so approachable. I can go downstairs from the studio right now. Mayor is probably walking down Main Street.
Yeah,
And it's a very effective way of governance. It's really interesting because I think a lot of people don't really understand how governments work, how your local city works. And you have your own philosophical views on it too. Do you think there is like a basic services that government should provide, and then kind of everything else let the private market kind of run it?
oh, absolutely. And like I said, everything's local, and so you're right. I mean, these people that I serve, we're a town of 68,000 people. Those are people that I see in the grocery store. I mean,
Love
the
it.
gas station, church. My daughter is starting kindergarten this year, so people parents that my kids go to school with, and it's personal for me. But yeah, we provide basic services. I mean, those are the things that help government run. And I think our role as a local government is to create the environment that private businesses can thrive in. And so, how do we make it easy? And that's what we've done my last 2 years in office is, well, first 2 years, last 2 years, but outside trying to navigate a pandemic of how do we make it easier? How do we make it more attractive? How do we focus
Yeah.
on quality of life? And so, kind of what we look at is any initiative that we try to bring in, is it efficient? Is it transparent? Is it inclusive? And then our three focus areas are infrastructure, public safety, and quality of life. And so we want to make sure
Infrastructure,
that
public
people
safety, quality of life.
want people to have
I like that.
be able to get here, be able to get around. Whether that's I have a meeting next week on a pedestrian bike path planning grant that we got. Want people to feel safe and want people to have things to do and feel value in their neighborhoods.
And what's the and then the third, the quality of life aspect of it. Uh, what what aspect of government is involved in like the everyday life of everyone else? You know what I mean? I guess I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm asking that question the right
No, no,
way.
yeah, yeah. What exactly is quality of life, right? So, you know, we manage several facilities, and so we have a fine arts center here that so we rent out very low. I mean, those are not to make money; those just provide
Sure.
venues for people. But getting those, you know, getting the arts involved. We're setting up an arts district downtown. We have a public art initiative to beautify our buildings. Got a lot of blank canvases to encourage artists and utilize private donations along with some funds that we've received from grants to implement public murals. We have a we have an amphitheater that the
Oh,
city
very cool.
city built, but we use a private group that raises money to pay for the talent. So they have free concerts during the summertime. It comes down to our public parks, those the sports leagues, the things that we have, and just making it look like that we care, right?
Sure.
Driving down the road, the details.
The
Um,
finer details in things.
yeah, I try to drive through and tell our staff, when you drive through our city, drive through as if you're driving through for the first time. That you don't, that stick of grass poking up out of the sidewalk on a major thoroughfare is a problem. We have to do those things and make it look like that we care and we want people to feel comfortable in our city.
That is my biggest pet peeve. Do you know you hit the nail right on the head? I was explaining this to my wife whenever we travel, and I don't want to like name countries, but when we travel to places, I don't want to call them out. Sometimes you'll notice that blade of grass, the finer details. They build mansions on dirt roads. And it doesn't make sense to me. It's like why not focus the money on from the ground up on the finer details first, the quality of life, and then focus on these other things. Our biggest pet peeve. So that we came back from a trip from somewhere. It was a Caribbean island, and I was getting a smoothie, and I was just looking at the smoothie place was like a standalone little building on a highway, and I'm just looking at the. My wife was like, "What are you doing?" And I just noticed the corners of the building. The grass is so like edged so perfectly. The
Yeah,
fine. No one's looking at this. No one's ever gonna look at this corner. This grass. But it's the small things. You're
yeah.
right. It's brilliant.
And outside of for us outside of public safety. After this year, we're expanding our groundskeeping department is outside of police and fire is the largest department, and
Wow.
we've expanded that over the last 2 years to hire more people, to get more equipment, to make sure that we're looking out for those details. Because yeah, you're right. When it's edged, it's nice. You don't notice it, but when it's not, you do notice it.
Something like kind of controversial actually that for me, and because I'll get people coming at me, but I grew up in Brooklyn. A lot of my family was in NYPD, and I like and grew accustomed to seeing cops on the beat. It made me feel safe growing up. Whatever the regardless of the powers of the police, I go back to New York now, and I don't you don't see one NYPD anywhere in Manhattan or anything like that. It's concerning for a lot of people because that does come down to the safety aspect for you. But maybe policing has changed over the last like 10 years. I'm not really sure. Would you have any thoughts on that?
So it has, yeah, but I think that the fundamentals of good policing is still there. You have to have community oriented policing. You have to build those good relationships with people. It's strange sometimes because you see people that a mom or with a little kid, they're acting up. Police walks by and she says, "You keep acting up, I'm gonna have him go with you." And so it's that connotation of he's only there to arrest me is needs to be changed, and we have to work on that from the police standpoint. And I'm very fortunate to have a great police chief, have a great police department that does that. They're active. They do community events. They're right now they're going to a school this afternoon and having a community cookout. And so creating those positive relationships and so that positive connotation with police officers and the community. So if and when something does happen, that they know that the police officers are there to help the situation. I think a lot of it goes to for us, there's surveillance, there's technology that creates a better wraparound effect for police officers. So it's not solely dependent on that officer patrolling the street and being on the beat, but it's still important to have that visibility and presence there. Mental health is a big issue for us.
Yeah, that's a big issue too down here in Florida.
The majority of our police calls are with mental health issues, and so we're working on creating a mobile response team with our local mental health provider that will provide counselors because our police officers they're trained diffuse a situation, calm someone down, go on to the next call. Well, if that person has mental health issues, how can we provide an opportunity for that person to get the help they need? And the wraparound service come back and check on them. If they're off their medication, help them get back on, help them get on a regimen, but make sure that they're not slipping further down the slope and through the cracks
Yeah.
with mental health.
That's the scariest thing, in policing as a community from a community perspective, and I know that you talk about Bitcoin and you talk about crypto and how that can kind of change things. It's funny, yesterday, while I was talking to the deputy city manager, who's also the former, I think, police chief, he, I was just asking him, he brought up body cams, and he was like, he was saying to me, "Oh, yeah, body cams are like crypto." And I said, "What do you mean? You're gonna use a crypto analogy with me? I'm the crypto guy."
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, "No, no, no, because when we finally like even I was a little bit opposed to it. When we finally got him, it de-risks the officer from having to like he said, she said, like take my word for it." And it's the same thing with your cryptocurrency thing, right, Charlie? How it's like all about de-risking. And I was like, "You're listening to my podcast, aren't you?"
It's a great
It's a
analogy. Yeah.
great analogy. But let's talk about that for a second, because I really do believe that uh, bringing about like a global community locally is a great way to create like, you're an ambassador for your city. Come move here. Do you think we could ever see a world where um, you could raise a municipal bond for to build out another amphitheater, raise that in crypto, do some side of like a token offering type of thing?
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I'll say when I first got into this for municipal side, excuse me, to see what we can do. My first thought was I have space, well ventilated space down on the other end of City Hall that we were going to spend a few $1,000s and get some mining equipment and and mine it, put it on our balance sheet for future projects. Um, Come to find out, we got to get some state legislation changed to allow us to do that. But
What legislation would have to change?
uh,
Because this is a super cool idea, and I want you to do
yeah,
this.
so our legislation, at least in Tennessee, is very specific on what municipalities, local governments can hold as investments on the balance sheet. And if it's not on the list, then you can't do it. So we have to at least get it either added on the list or changed to open up some diversified options for us to be able to do that.
Now, I'm sure one of the things on that list is the ability to invest in regulated funds. Why not? Why want I like I love how, but I want to know your answer. You choose to say I'd rather mine it down the hall than buy a piece of a mining company on behalf of the city.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it puts the control at the local level where it needs to be. And for us, we want to be in charge of our finances. We don't want to depend on, uh, it's good to invest and diversify your portfolio. I think that's exactly what we want to do with any investments that we have. You got to be diversified for those opportunities to happen.
I think if Satoshi were around or, is listening or watching, he would actually, or she or they would be very proud and would be very pro what you're trying to do because the ethos of Bitcoin was not just about the individual, but it's maybe individuals coming together and saying, we want this representation, and then giving that representation uh, the power to be able to go out and create its own spending. Like you're now basically creating your own budget and you're investing in the future. Like that is powerful. That is
Yeah.
so powerful.
I mean, a lot of local governments now, us included, we're having to do that. The or question: do we do this or do we do this with the limited funds? And I personally believe that if we were able to put the mining rigs up and we're able to make those investments, that we get to a point where we're not asking or, we're just saying and. We're going to do this and we're going to do this. There's no limit to what we can do in the future.
What type of things would you like to invest in the future? How are you looking to attract other crypto folk, Bitcoiners, crypto folk to move to Jackson? Is it you're more looking for like an investment people online to look at, as a long-term investment possibility, potentially building buildings, if you're looking at me to say, hey, build a building, a commercial property, is what type of investment are you looking for?
All the above.
Oh yeah.
Interesting about Jackson, we were the first city in the state to have residential gig fiber internet. So if you live in the city limits of Jackson, you have access to gig internet right now, and it's been that way for, gosh, 15 or so years. We didn't tell anybody, and so the city across the on the other side of the state got to tell people they were the first. When I have a conversation with some of them, I
Yeah.
remind them they're not the first. But we are, for me, in my opinion, where we are physically. We have an interstate running right through here. We're an hour from Memphis, 2 hours from Nashville. We're in a prime location physically, and the fact that we have the ability to get that gig fiber internet to your residence, to your place of business. I mean, it just allows for that revolution, that next economy, that next gen economy. We talk, sometimes about the gig economy. I mean, you got to have a gig internet really if you want to do the gig economy
I
now.
love that. That's great. Yeah. It's
And
true.
it's the really eye-opening thing for me was about 5 years ago now. My cousin lives in Boulder, Colorado, works for Google, and he was home visiting our grandmother. And we were talking. He said, "Man, I wish that I had the residential internet service that you all have." Wait a second now. You want internet? Do you work at Google? I mean, you got internet.
Yeah.
And well, yeah, we got it, but we don't have it at our house. If I want to do, he was doing back end coding. Maybe I'm saying that right. You don't know. It's above my comprehension level, but
No,
couldn't do
you're
the
right.
work at home. Couldn't carry it home with him. Had to do it on the campus. And so, so if I had this type of internet at my house, I could work anywhere, but it just didn't have that opportunity. And we have that here. And it's just getting out and telling people what's available.
That I believe that completely because there's different tiers and levels and speeds. Anyone who's flown a plane knows that when you're buying internet, you can choose from the free slow to the faster. But uh, he can do that, but he cannot do that back end coding without super fast internet because he's gonna have to collaborate with people in real time all over the world. And if they can't do that, slow, even 1 millisecond slower, the whole thing crashes. I had a similar situation yesterday where one person, funnily enough, actually in Colorado, was slowing us all down on a Zoom call, and we had to have him mute his video. Who's not done that before? So what
Right.
you're talking about is exactly right. And but I kind of like where you're going here, saying that, super fast internet should be almost like a basic, not human right, but something that's accessible
It
for
should be
everyone in equal
it should
way.
be considered as a utility. Light,
Wow.
water, gas, broadband. That should be in the same conversation. It shouldn't be you have to move somewhere. What we've seen with the pandemic has really highlighted, especially you look at where Jackson is. We're surrounded by rural West Tennessee. So you go outside of the city limits, and you don't have the internet accessibility that you do inside the city limits. And so when we saw schools having to close, we had to get nonprofits together and get school system and find ways to get hotspots to families because they didn't have internet at their house. And so, it really shows that the internet, fast internet, not just any internet, but fast broadband should be considered in the conversation with utilities.
What type of job requirements come with being mayor? Like, what's a? I know I keep veering away from Bitcoin and crypto, but I'm so interested in talking to you. What's a day in your life?
Oh man,
Non COVID. If it
yeah,
wasn't
not
COVID,
COVID. I wish I knew. Most of my life has been COVID as mayor. It's it, I think each city's unique. Our city charters set up, strong mayor, weak council. So I'm my job is the CEO of the city, and so I'm as far as the organization goes. So I have about 740 employees that I'm responsible for. But you have great department heads that run their departments and check in with them to make sure. But talking to constituents, meetings, having these vision plannings, and how we change things. And I'm 2 years in my first term, so a lot of what we have done has been, long-term planning. And I tell people all the time, I plan on running for reelection. I want to get reelected, but the decisions that I make now are not based on getting reelected. The decisions I make are based on what's best for Jackson. How's it going to position us better for the future? Some of those on the surface aren't popular. People, scratch their head, wonder why. But it's about positioning us for the future. One example is in the past, our city has depended on debt and bonds to repave streets.
yeah.
It's unsustainable. So what we've done the last 2 years, didn't borrow any money, and then last year didn't borrow any money. Now, last year we didn't pave a single street, and people want their streets paved. But this year, because we watched our money, COVID helped us with the ability to not spend as much as we normally have. We ended the fiscal year with $8.5 million. Our budget is roughly 77 million. So we ended the $8.5 million
Oh
surplus.
wow.
So we're taking half of that, pushing it forward with money we had left over. We're spending nearly $6 million on street resurfacing, which is for the city of Jackson the largest single year street resurfacing project that's ever happened. And we're not borrowing money, but we're using money that we saved to do that. And so it's how do we save and prepare, knowing there'll be some short term pain, but long term prosperity.
Hey guys, I'm Charlie Shrem here in Las Vegas to teach some NFL players about Bitcoin. But I wanted to congratulate our sponsor Kava because Circle chose the Kava platform as one of their newest blockchains and protocols they're going to be launching USDC on. Traditionally, USDC has only been on Ethereum and one or two other chains like Tron. But now there's a bunch of other blockchains. The Kava platform is one of them, and you can access all of those super cool DeFi high yield opportunities that are on the Kava platform now with USDC, which we know and love. So check them out at untoldstories.link/Kava. And congratulations, guys. Having Circle choose y'all as the top blockchain for USDC to be launched on is a big freaking deal. I'm going to go teach some football players about Bitcoin. Here's Courtney. I'm out.
The way you run Jackson is the same way from that is the most common sense way of running a 7 house homeowners association to a large city to hell a government and a country as large and amazing as ours here. That is the way government, very pragmatically. So what I want to understand is, when does the breakdown happen? Does a city get too big? Is there Does a city get too bloated? Like, or is it happen on the state level? When is there that breakdown? And is there a way, do you think, that crypto and Bitcoin, hopefully Bitcoin, could actually uh, uh, fix that, change that?
You know, I,
I struggled. I think about it
yeah,
every
yeah.
day.
I don't know exactly where the breakdown happens, but I do remember um, we had a senator, Bob Corker, here that was that retired from the Senate a few years ago. But he came up as business owner, construction business, mayor of Chattanooga, Tennessee, then on to the Senate. And I was talking with him one day, and it was a group of us, and the question was asked, "What's the most frustrating thing for you as a senator?" And his answer was very, very pragmatic, very mayor answer. So, my job as a senator is to look at big picture, step back, what's going to affect the entire country, what committees I'm on. So the single biggest problem is single interest groups, because they wake up every single day and they're focused on one single thing, and they're going to spend all their money, they're going to spend all their time, they're going to spend all their resources on that one single thing. And he went on to say, he told the story of how he started his company, how he generated his wealth, and he laid all that out to say, as a senator, I don't need the things that they're offering, right? Because I've built my wealth. Unfortunately, some need those things, or they are attracted to those
I
things,
understand. Yeah.
and that's what creates the disconnect and the problem. And I think that's just that hierarchy and the separation of wealth that we've seen in our country the last generation. And how we can build that back and create a more equal playing field. And I think that just that, what we talk about here locally about DCA and into Bitcoin allows for that. Money is the problem at the end of the day.
That's
And so
yes.
I think we're seeing a shift, because I can give you personal example. When I ran in 2019, they told me that to be competitive, you had to raise $200,000. And one of my opponents was a retiring state representative, so he had connections, lobbyists. So he raised $200,000. I raised 50,000, not $50, but I raised $50,000. But we utilized what we had. We utilized social media. We
Yeah.
utilized targeting ads with an 8-cent CPM, as opposed to going out on TV or newspaper. Those traditional markets, utilizing stories, videos, posts, targeted. And I mean, we spent, of the 50, we spent $44,000. And here I am.
You were really smart about it because you really, really wanted it badly. And while a lot of people would just like go to TV ads in the simple way and the easy way out, you realize that you had to like almost run your campaign like you'd be running a future city. If if I almost imagine you saying to yourself, if I can do this and run this campaign fiscally and win, then I can run this city and do, exactly what the road paving situation is. But and I remember what the story I was getting at really quickly was you bring up money too. That and I'm not always looking for the one solution to that one problem, but just that one friend, we were trying to get together to create like a little group of us, a multi issue group, and then get some donations and then try to run events and things like that. But the barrier to entry, first of all, so you're limited to how much you can actually contribute. The
Mhm.
barrier to entry to go from like a small group of people who want to affect change to like a multi-billion-dollar single issue group, the barrier is like the gap is huge. There's no way for a bunch of people in someone's dining room over cheese and crackers to say, "Hey, let's put a little bit of money together and try to enact change." There's no way to do it.
Right. No, not at the federal level, I don't think. I mean, I think that's why I go back to all politics are local. The decisions that I make on a daily basis affect and impact the people in Jackson far greater than anything most anything that's going to be voted on and talked about at the federal level. And I think once you see that, just how my opinion of Bitcoin adoption is going to have to be ground up, local level,
Yeah.
on the way up. I think that's how the change happens. It has to start locally. We're implementing a program here, tactical urbanism, where we have a street design team that's going to implement a process for neighborhoods, for streets, neighborhood associations to present ideas, get the process approved very quickly, and let them implement ideas to improve their neighborhood, whether that be traffic calming, whether that be pedestrian access, and then have the city come alongside and if it works, make it permanent. But let them kind of be the ones to empower themselves and help us empower them to create that change and then create those ideas and bring those innovations to the forefront.
Can do you think do you think voting can ever happen on a blockchain? I know that the voter turnout, it's like when you're running, you're fighting for like a small pool of voters. It's not like you're just
It's
going,
and the more local you get, the more dismal the turnout gets.
it's the same group of people. But at the end of the day, I think it's like getting to the voting booth or going, which is like the biggest impediment. But if we can all, do it on our phones or whatever, or computers, there's obviously privacy issues with that. But I could see solutions around that. Do you think that governments don't want that to happen because it's easier to form, to like predict who's going to win, based on if it's a smaller group of people? Because that's what I think.
Yeah, I think when you're playing the numbers game, you want to do whatever you can to control those numbers.
You get more people voting, more
Makes more
people involved. Yeah.
unpredictability.
But it allows more politicians like yourself to be in power. That's my whole point.
Yeah,
Uh,
no,
y-
I think that you get the ones unfortunate people that get power. What's the one thing they want more of?
I love it. I was reading a quote. Um, He said, I was young when my granddad was mayor, just thinking about the life lessons that he was teaching me while I was crawling around on the city hall floor. I didn't understand them at the time, but they were about how to treat people, about how to have respect for the people you work with. And that's what I've carried me today. Uh, that's an insane thing because third generation, family here, you would think that the way we get mass adoption for Bitcoin would be, new politicians coming in with no experience. But here you are saying, I have the experience, I know what it is, and I love it, and I'm going to be the one to help make the change. That blows me away.
But, I think it's all depends on the examples that we have, and I can remember being young. I didn't know who the janitor was. I didn't know who the commissioner was. I didn't. I mean, they were all treated the same when they came in his office, and that's we're all people. We all have value. It doesn't matter what dents, dings, what job we have. There's value in everyone. And everyone has something to offer. And it's just that's the way we have to treat people.
Is you know, on that note, it was always like people roll your eyes and you say, "Oh, call your politician, call your politician." Is that an actual constructive strategy if there's something that means a lot to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about the state or federal level because that's a large, especially when you get to Senate.
Sure.
That is a very large population that you're representing. Local level, especially, is important. Now, I mean, a lot of people calling it. It works, especially for us. We have non-council members that are broken down in districts. They represent about 5,000 people apiece, and so if you have a large group calling them, that's going to affect their vote definitely. And so it's you know I say yes because there's some issues that it does that you people upset about it do, but some issues where you have a large volume of people that are upset, but that it's just because it's change. Because right, change is
Yeah.
good as long as you change and I don't. And so if there's change that is going to be a long term benefit, it's just about communicating that and understanding that people do have that emotional reaction to change. But if you can communicate why you're doing it, even though they still have the emotional reaction at some point, then if you do it right and make the right decision, then they'll realize that it was beneficial.
A lot of people know that change is gonna come, but they're opposed to it too. It's like even dealing with the noise ordinances and trying to get those things like that changed. The people know that more rowdy bars are coming to a main street near you, but at the same time they don't want to allow the noise ordinance to be raised because it's every city, yours included, probably has to deal with things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I think one of the things now where we're going through, we changed our trash pickup. Right? And so we had probably one of the last cities in the nation to have backdoor trash pickup where you can put your trash outside your back door in your garage and the trash guy would walk
Wait,
all the
that
way.
exists?
It did until August 1st. Um,
I would have moved to Jackson just for that. You need to
and
get that
so
back.
we,
It's
we
probably
changed
expensive.
that and that was voted on, gosh, February, March. So I mean, we've been telling people for a while that this
Yeah.
was coming, but until they got their new trash bin and they realized, hey, wait, I really do have to take it to the curb. Then that's when the last week of July and this week have been where the calls have coming in, the emails have come in of this is a horrible idea. You're not going to get reelected because of this. And it's just that because it affects me now. I heard about it
Yeah.
5 months ago, but it affects me now. And that's when the urgency happens to communicate the displeasure in it. But it's it's something that had to be done. The last, ironically, the last mayor of Jackson that tried to do this was my grandfather, and they had a big group that came into City Hall waving signs, had songs made up, protesting, and so they didn't get it done back then. So we did it now. They're still not happy about it.
So change is coming, and I do believe that whether it be Tennessee, Wyoming, New Jersey, who knows, states are going to allow cities, municipalities, villages, whatever, counties to mine Bitcoin, mine cryptocurrencies. So now we're living in this new world, and you'll be one of the first. And here you are, you know that Bitcoin is wildly, wildly decentralized. Probably the furthest along on that path to decentralization. Have you thought about what would happen when decisions need to be made on behalf of the Bitcoin network? You're now in a position where you have to, download certain software to follow this change or update certain software to follow this other change. Do you make these decisions within the city government? Do you put it out to like a referendum? How cool would that be?
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
imagine referendums for for what change would see on the Bitcoin network. I mean, come on, that's so cool.
yeah. No, it is. And I think
I just called the mayor dude. I'm sorry.
yeah. No, it's
I'm excited.
like I told you, I don't care. Um, I think we're a ways away from that. I think education is still, for at least for us at our level, is the biggest barrier and hurdle. And so, we're starting slow. Um, our task force is looking at ways to two things immediately. Well, I mean, the next several months, because we still can't hold it. We still have to use third
Sure.
parties. That if someone wants to pay their property taxes in Bitcoin, they can, and we have to utilize a third party to do that. Immediate conversion to USD, and then transfer it over to the city. And then we're also looking at utilizing a third party
Oh, I
for
love that.
employees so we can still pay employees in USD. They can utilize payroll deduction, so they can. We already have a 401k, an IRA option for them for their deferred comp, but they can diversify their deferred compensation into Bitcoin. And so those are two things that we're looking at immediately to try to ease into that change of just saying, hey, there is a utility to it. It can be used. There's an opportunity for our employees to gain some wealth at the same time.
You know, the basic tenement of paying your property taxes would have such a change because it would remove multiple middlemen and a lot of fees in between. And I'm just thinking now, I pay my property taxes every year, and I can't pay with a credit card. I have to pay 3%. So that's out the window. So why, if your property taxes are $10,000, you're now paying an additional $300 just for the middleman. Um, Furthermore, you're assuming that I don't earn my income in crypto, which I do. So now I have to convert that crypto and pay a fee into dollars, deal with all of that, wait for the wire transfer, get it into my bank account, do an AC. There's like time and delays. Imagine if cities can get the money faster, more predictable, not have to worry about middlemen and settlements. I mean, it would change from the city view, from the city level, but also from the payer level. You'd see an uptick in people paying faster and all of their money. You wouldn't have as many collections. You'd probably see, like real estate tax sales go down. Oh, it'd fundamentally change everything if you did that.
Yeah, and just it's like I said, it'll be a transition because we'll still have to use that third party to start. But if we can get that legislation changed, then it can be a direct transaction between the payer and the city.
A lot of my listeners on this show really don't understand that our local government is so important to us, and and I know I'm like harping on this, so back and forth, back and forth.
I love this. I harp on this all the time.
What can my listeners, I have listeners, these listeners are everywhere. I love my listeners. They're living in mountain villages in Switzerland to science camps in Antarctica to everywhere. But everyone lives in societies. We want to be pro-social members of society. We live in, whether it's small family units to large cities to counties with no one in them. How can we get more involved in how uh, our societies are run?
Well, that's a great question. I think obviously the canned answer is vote.
Yeah.
That's important. But I think for us, there's 4 years in between an election. That if you just only vote every 4 years, you're not really that involved. Yeah, I think it varies from the size of the cities, right? So I mean, I think for me,
Your city's the perfect size. I love it.
it was a city of 68,000. I've been here all 38 years of my life. Um, and so I've had the same cell phone number for the last 20 of those years. And so half of Jackson has my cell phone number. Um, but I mean, so there's a direct access. I run all my social media accounts. So it's,
That's great.
if you send me a message, you're communicating with me, you're not communicating with anyone else. You get into larger cities, and I think it's important to just be aware of what's going on, what your local government's voting on, the kind of government that you have. Like in Tennessee, we only have one metropolitan government. That's Nashville. The rest of them, we have a county and city government. So, what your city's doing, what your county's doing. Then you have local representatives. I think probably the easier path would be contacting and working with your councilmen, your aldermen, your commissioners.
What
And
system do you like better? Do you like because my city's also, they're voting on going through it now. They have a 5-member city commission with like kind of equal, where they kind of run it as a committee, but they're trying to move to a potent to more how you run your city where you have a stronger mayor. What do you like better?
I think
Is size of the city, does that
now
matter?
I have also been a city councilman here, so
Oh, okay.
I think sitting in this chair, I like our form of government better because it allows me more versatility. It allows me agility to do things. Um, but it does have its drawbacks because,
Sure.
especially going through the pandemic, we're under executive orders. I was making decisions on an island because I didn't have time. There was no ability to go have council approve it. We were in an emergency situation, so the decisions I made were very linear for me. Coming out of that emergency into normal things, I've had to catch myself, and my council members have held me accountable to, hey, you're not on the island anymore.
Sure.
Include us, and so that's something I've had to work on to increase and enhance my communication with them. And I love to hear people's input, so I try to share with them more now than I have been. Um, and so there are some things that have to go before council, but I think if you have too many committees and you have too much discussion on committees, then a lot of time you get that paralysis by analysis, and you get too many cooks in the kitchen, and you can't agree on things. And so the way that we work is they're the legislative body. I'm in charge of the agenda, so nothing goes on the agenda without my approval. We have implemented a couple of different committees, and I do communicate what's coming down the pike of that. We started having work sessions with our council so they can be aware before we just put it on the agenda form, so they can have some kind of constructive feedback prior to voting. But I think having that line of,
Yeah.
this is where it goes. You vote on it. You either vote for it or you don't. You can vote to table it, but my office sets the direction of the city and how the government functions. I think it streamlines things a lot better. It creates for more opportunity for things to get done than having to take every single decision back to the committee for them to decide.
The line between having to deal with a pandemic and executive orders and then going back to running the government, by committee with the city council and with everyone, it's a line that you have to decide where it is in real time, and it always comes down to you. It comes down to you to be for accountability. For if you make the right decision, great. If you made the wrong decision, how do you move forward? You need to have you. So it seems to me from our 45 minutes of talking is that you have a very strong like moral compass. Who Because I want to know this person. Who is your true north? Who can you call, or someone that you can speak to, whether it be emotionally, when you're struggling with where you should be, kind of morally or whatever.
Oh man, I have several. My wife is one. And I'm a man of faith. I pray a lot. Now I'm fortunate too. Also,
God bless
my
you.
my grandmother is still around that lived through my grandfather of 22 years of public service in the mayor's office. And so, I mean, there ain't much she hadn't seen. And so
Mm.
I can talk to her. And then one of my good friends and my chief of staff is also my political advisor as well on things like that. And then I have a great executive staff that I talk with. So depending on what it is who I talk with and share and just kind of get feedback. And they all have different perspectives, and so that kind of brings it whole. And my wife is great at analyzing and making me think. And she's a teacher, And so she's going to ask those questions that just make you think, and it frustrates me sometimes. I just
Yeah,
want
I have the same
to
my
just
wife
want
does
to
the same
scream,
thing.
but then I have to stop. You know what? This is how her mind works, and this is why I ask her things. But it allows you different options, and you see those different perspectives as well.
Yeah, you just reminded me that there are a few things that I need to bounce ideas and stresses that I need to bounce off my wife after we finish the show. So thank you, because it's
Yeah.
true. A lot of times, their way, whether it be our partners or political advisors or friends or whatever it is, we all think differently. So it's like
Mhm.
we can't be afraid of that, which I am sometimes. And thank you for
You know,
checking me today.
my philosophy is that if we agree on everything, then one of us isn't necessary.
Oh, that's kind of a scare. I never heard that, and it's a little bit scary. But it's true. It's true. That's a very, like, real way of saying that. Yeah, wow. It's true. We can't be in echo chambers. We can't just
Yeah.
be in this big echo chamber together. We have to constantly have people in front of us, behind us, and standing next to us to create this beautiful thing. Well,
And,
thank
man,
you.
it's
Yep.
frustrating because I'm decisive. I make a decision, I go, and then I have one councilman who frustrates the living mess out of me, but I love him for it
That's important.
because he wants to analyze things and he wants to slow down, and I want to move. And he said, "Wait, let's look at this." And I just want to go. Let's go, and then it helps me to slow down and to look at things. And I want things done yesterday. I want to get them done quickly, but as frustrating as it is, it does in the long run. It's a benefit.
Mayor Scott Conger, thank you so much for coming on Untold Stories today. You've blown me away, our listeners away, and definitely given us such a deep insight into how, like, cities are run, but also how societies kind of should be run in a way, and all across globally, from the local level to the global level. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And it's
Awesome.
I think it comes down to loving where you live, and everyone I think can add value in some sort of way. You don't have to be an elected official to be able to do that.
Hey, like, if you don't love where you live, should you move? Is
I
like,
think that's a last resort. I think you got to try to, if you don't love it, find out what you don't love about it. First, I think you find out what you do love about it, right? I mean, we tend to focus on, our brains just innately do that, of finding the negative and listening to the
mm,
negative and hearing the negative. But find out, hey, why do I live here? And what do I like about where I live? And how can I multiply that? Or what? And then you go, can't multiply that anymore. What I want to see change that would make me like this more. And I think it's just about mindset and perspective of, hey, I not going to the fact of I don't like that, of how can I improve that? How can I make that better? How can it work better for us and for me and for the community, and not just pointing out people.
wow.
I had somebody, one of my staff came in here and said, this needs to be fixed. Well, yeah, don't just come to me with a problem. Come to me with a problem and the solution, or a solution, so we can work on a solution. Because
Or
I got too many
something, yeah. Or a
got too many people
solution way
pointing
of
problems out
thinking.
to me. I know the problems. I need help with solutions.
I hate that. That's my biggest pet peeve too. It's like, don't remind me of a problem without
Yeah.
giving some insight into how you would solve it. Thank you. I appreciate you coming on Untold Stories today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed it.